do no harm. Normally with these kinds of people is they need some kind of experience, some kind of proof, something to reestablish faith, because they are generally hopeless. They just, I'll always be like this is life, this is reality, it sucks, and they'll live in that disassociated state. Or worse, they'll go into a negative actualization, where they'll start to, if they can't feel pain, then they'll inflict pain on others just so something is happening. It's potentially dangerous, yes. But the idea is they have to have faith. You have to help them come out of hopeless into hopeful, and by giving them some experiences which are really beautiful and pleasurable. With the Neurolite, the one that is really designed for that is in the dependency section. It's called After Trauma. And when a person experiences that, there's a likelihood that it's going to feel wonderful. And the fact that they can feel wonderful is a proof that it's possible to feel wonderful. So I'm now open to pursuing that, and it's the beginning of converting hopeless into hopeful, no faith into faith. It's the basis. If there's one thing that is the cardinal trigger for neuroplastic change, we know it's conscious attention. And by definition, a person in that depth, they're removing themselves from it. The thing that goes with attention is faith. Faith and attention are the two mobilizers of positive neuroplastic change. One is attention is like an action trigger, but we can say the psychological or existential or the soulful feeling is one of it's possible. Having faith in life, having faith in yourself, having faith in the process, whatever. Maybe you don't call it faith, maybe you call it confidence, right? Or belief. But these two things are best unified as one thing. Yeah.
And this is going away from theory, but just to some practical, logistical strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Step one, in my experience, trying to help people, is that they have to have faith and trust in you.
Sure.
And you are the representation at this point of the Neurolite. They don't have any experience or understanding, so you're their first contact. And going back to my experience and understanding on how to approach crisis, problems, conflict, is what I would just refer back to as that very systematic way of approaching somebody. And what I've found is, and they've proven with humans and animals, if you get below their eye contact, you are the less threat. And so what I've started kind of intuitively, but also because of the research and how I apply it to my toddler, is I have the person, when I'm starting to engage, I sit on the chair, they're on the table, and so they're looking down at me, and I'm looking up at them, and it establishes immediately, there's no threat, and kind of an ease of connection, that initial connection, and it just happens to work well because the chair is lower than the table, so there's an automatic dynamic that's set up as that first
Oh, that's
step.
all true. We'll spend more time in that towards a little bit later when we look at the neuroplastic reinforcements. I 100% agree. I spend a lot of time, as many of you have, but I spend a lot of time in massage therapy and body work, in the psychology of having a person basically get on an altar, which you think is a massage table, take off their clothes as a sacrificial offering / victim, and that you stand above them, and they close their eyes, and your eyes are open, you touch them, they don't touch you. Wow, or several leaps ahead of this thing that you're talking about. Okay, so I want to keep going because it's 11:30 now. The day is going to fly by, and I want to finish up with this area of the brain gym called the brain network reinforcements. So I've talked about 3. There are 7. The next 2 are tango partners. The first 3 have this give and take relationship, but there's a lot of dominance and subordinates. The dorsal attention network and the ventral attention network I call dance partners, tango partners. When you want to bring task into focus, that's the dorsal attention network. So it is involved with focus of attention. The ventral relates to field of attention. So one is focus, one is field. Dorsal is focus, ventral is field. And using, imagined sort of classic imagery, if an animal is focusing in on a task but is unaware of the field, it can't update by context, because things are happening in the field that might relate to the task of the focus. So you might be focusing in on, biting that fish, and in comes another bigger fish, and poof, your lunch. So these 2, if you follow, from Buddhist Vajrayana principles, Mahayana principles, this is the shamatha practices, learning how to effortlessly focus. And the field is the vipassana, where you're aware of what's happening, but without determination, without judgment. So if a person has a hard time maintaining focus because, would you keep the kids quiet, or it's so noisy, or the light is too bright, anything in the field that is disturbing the context of their focus, they can't integrate. So spend time in the ventral attention network, because that allows them to kind of go from like a macro lens into a wide lens, right? So they can have a wide lens on their camera, and just everything is experienced without shutting down pieces and parts of it open. And that's mindfulness, essentially. But in the evolution into the mindful state of just letting yourself be aware of your thoughts and your feelings, you're not yet aware of awareness, which is where it's supposed to go. But you're aware of your experience. See, there's still a me and a you. There's still a me having an experience. That's why it's not final. But it's a huge step for most of us to have that, right? But if focus is always attached to effort, that's not good. That being able to, the shamatha practices, what's called the tranquility stages, help a person learn how to focus their attention without effort. It's called, a calm abiding. They just calmly abide in the focus. And then, once you can do that, you can kind of back off, stay with the tripod, but still be aware of the whole room and all the people in it. So it seems paradoxical, but a matured consciousness can do both. That's why I say they're dance partners. But in tango, the man will be doing a lot of the focusing and the woman will be doing a lot of the elaborate field, right? So if the man is not the pole, she can't dance around the pole.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's put this on pause, just a moment.